First, quick news item. We got an update that's kind of a non-update. We didn't discuss Brock Bowers' ankle injury a lot on Saturday night, but some of the reports are making it look as though he'll be missing some amount of time. Georgia's off this week. They returned to action at the end of the month against Florida in Jacksonville. I saw one report that was, quote, not optimistic for the Florida game. Danny, when we're looking at, Danny did 9 Brock Bowers injury updates on CBS Sports HQ live on Saturday. Of course, I'm coming to you first here. But when we look at Brock Bowers' importance to this Georgia offense and then also the schedule, is there a timeline that you think could be problematic in terms of what his absence could mean for Georgia's hopes of another SEC championship, of making it to the college football playoff?
No, I think as long as he's back for the SEC championship game, they're fine. Like, that's what I mean. And that's what, it was like a fire drill. It was like the panic meter was going off. Like, oh my gosh, we got to get this breaking news. Brock Bowers is down. And then I saw the play, and then I saw him walk off the field, and then you saw him go in. He was limping a little bit more when he went into the locker room, but it just looked like a sprained ankle. And I think always is the high ankle sprain or the low. I think Kirby said it was like on the bottom of his foot. I would think he's back, like, worst case scenario, 4 weeks. And I think best case scenario, he's on the field against Florida after the bye week. But the luxury that Georgia has because of the schedule, they can kind of, take their time, make sure he's really good to go. And maybe you want to try to get him back for Knoxville, road game, Tennessee. That's probably the one where you need him the most.
Perusing Georgia Twitter this morning, which is not official, obviously, I'm going to set the over-under for when he's back as the Tennessee game in Knoxville. Like, there's reports out there. I don't know who issued the reports, because I just, in some Twitter DMs, like, hey, reports that he needs tightrope surgery, which is like 4 to 6 weeks. So if I'm Florida, I'm prepping as if Brock Bowers will not be playing for Georgia against me. Tennessee should probably plan on Brock Bowers.
And look,
that's reading the tea leaves of Twitter. But I mean, if we just waited for the team to tell us,
pushing it out to Tennessee does include, it is the hardest part of Georgia's schedule, right? I was sitting there trying to put together, like, what is Georgia's best win? That's a fun exercise to go through right now. But Missouri, Ole Miss also are on that schedule after the Florida game. Do you think that Brock Bowers, his absence, would impact? They're both at home. They're both in Athens. But do you think those would make winning those 2 football games a little bit more difficult?
Yeah. Let's go back to the Auburn game. Was Georgia having an easy time of beating Auburn, the Auburn team that LSU just completely beat the hell out of on Saturday? No, it wasn't until they started feeding the ball to Brock Bowers that they really took control of that game and won the game. Like, he's their best player on offense. Maybe he's not the most important, because you can always say the quarterback's going to be the most important. But for a team that can't run the ball and has had to kind of start relying on throwing the ball around, losing your best receiving target is never going to be a good thing. Now, will it lead to them losing? I don't know, but it's definitely not going to help them at all.
He's probably worth like a point or point and a half to the point spread.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Which for a tight end is going to be like, unreal.
Most tight ends, I just really could not care. Unless you had like a cluster injury situation where you 3 or 4 guys were all out at the same position. But Georgia's still going to be a 3-score favorite in all of those games, with the exception of the game at Tennessee.
Right.
And we'll see if he comes back. So, maybe they are maybe they're 15 over Ole Miss and not 18. That's still a game you're expected to win comfortably. May not be pretty, but at home, Georgia kind of overwhelms people.
Weren't they only 14 versus Auburn? You don't think it'll be closer to 10 versus Ole Miss?
So,
Auburn that was on the road.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's what it was. Yeah.
No, they won't. They definitely won't be 10 over Ole Miss, because if you're making Georgia like a 28-30, right, which is probably the best team, but not like the clear, like, no doubt natty team. Like, Ole Miss ain't a 20. Not with that defense. So, they're probably more somewhere between like a 13 and a 16. Let's just call it 16, best case scenario. You're looking at like 12-13 neutral field, That'll probably be a night game. So 3.5 home field. There'll be 3-score favorites without Bowers.
They're all perfect 10s to me. Just wonderful teams filled with great boys.
So there was a time when the Cover 3 podcast was a Georgia pod. And then, I think Georgia got too big and we had to give them up to the masses, let them go be mainstream. We were there first. Okay.
Name 3 songs off Georgia's first album.
Yeah. Come on. So if I'm to go total like Georgia perspective on this and spin it forward in a way where I agree with you, Bud, like you should still be winning those games against Florida, Missouri, and Ole Miss. Now I do want to see who steps up. This is okay. And some of that might not even be on the offensive side. Some of that might be on the defensive side of the football as well, which, had some issue. Like the first play against Vanderbilt, whatever, that looked like a Vanderbilt offensive coaching staff that was tired of putting up 0 points in back-to-back years. But, you still gave up 20 points to Vanderbilt. You still allowed Auburn to run the ball really effectively. Like the defense is going to have even more of a challenge. You've got Luther Burden coming to town. Like you've got an Ole Miss offense that can get really hot. So this is where if Brock Bowers is out, from the Georgia's perspective, you want to say, okay, we know that we've got this super, super high floor because of the raw talent. Now, what about the production and the execution? Who is going to step up in that wide receiver room? Who is going to step up on the defensive side? There is room for improvement with Georgia because, Bud, you're right. Their power rating is like, national title contender, but no doubt. But we thought that they were going to be in that no doubt status. We looked at the roster and said, like, this could be an even better team than last year. And the execution just hasn't been there yet. So from Georgia, you're like, all right, here are games that we should win, but the absence of our easy button means someone else has to step up. Now let's see who answers that question.
I mean, I continue to be pretty impressed by this passing game with the receivers. Like you're going to get Rosemary-Jacksaint back. Dominic Lovett is a really nice player for you. I think the pass pro, for the most part for UGA, is just fine. They just need to lean in on Carson Beck more. Like Carson Beck's playing, to me, like the second best quarterback in the SEC. Daniels is playing the best, but I think it's pretty clearly Beck number 2 right now. Maybe Rattler 3.
Brady Cook is playing pretty okay.
I mean, he didn't look good against Kentucky.
Apparently, we are criminally underrating Jaden Daniels' season, even though he was the runner-up for the Player of the Month in the month of September and is putting together a decent candidacy for the Player of the Month in the month of October as well. But I like your Carson Beck call. Like this, if you want to go like Carson Beck Heisman flyer right now, he's got 4 games that are going to be massive. And if he puts that offense on his back, he's going to have a very different position in that Heisman Trophy conversation come the end of November.
Didn't we say?
Speaking of the Heisman, condolences to everybody who was trying to push the idea that Brock Bowers could win it. Sorry.
Yeah. To me, that was always nonsense. Yes. But I thought he could get to New York. It was kind of like the Shador thing. Like Shador can't win the Heisman. He could get to New York.
Listen, nonsense is fun. All right.
It is fun.
We have to introduce this nonsense. Okay.
We need to actually start offering get to New York bets, because I think that offers a lot more creativity and it creates fun discussion. But there are certain guys who can get there, but can't actually win it. And the media votes on this.
Does any book have that? Because it would be great. I wish they did.
Not this early in the season.
Yeah.
Some places will offer Heisman finalists like in the last 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, if you could price it, obviously it's.
I mean, that's so tough because the line for finalists is anywhere from like 3 to 6, and it depends on the voting margins. And that's placing a wager on that inexact science is. I mean, I'd rather bet on the coin flip. And this
not enough straw poll data out there for the books to risk it.
Yeah.